Greeting everybody and welcome to Beer Blather 286. Give us context. Nothing but nothing happens in a void. Every action, every omission, everything happens in context. Yet, folk rush to judgment when confronted with a slice of reality devoid of context, and nearly every time they get it wrong. A Maryland father turns out to be a gang member trafficking children. A Columbia graduate student turns out to be a soldier working for a terrorist organization that murders and kidnaps Americans. A father taking his child to school in DC turns out to be a child rapist, gang member, and repeated violator of our immigration laws. Context redirects empathy. It changes the meanings of actions and puts things in their proper place. President Trump insists in exploring every last opportunity to end conflict peacefully, be it in Rwanda, Thailand, Armenia, Gaza, or Ukraine. But those who spy the world through a keyhole will find inexistent friendships and equally inexistent enmities that run with it. The news has become a race to see who gets first to posture vacuities, pontificate inanities, and make fool of themselves. The intelligent observer will avoid pitfalls and gain understanding by not coming to conclusions until the proper context is applied. And that, from Venezuela to Spain, Ukraine and Gaza, Iran and China, is as important as ever. For me, my father was a pillar of rationality who, from my early days, insisted that I observe and cover the context and apply strict reasoning to elucidate the news. Today is the third anniversary of his departure. We could have He could have bequeathed me no greater fortune. This is Sol Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, from my golden cage in Florida. And right next to me, uh, quite basically so, it's Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War One flamethrowers. And by the way, do you remember when it took me a year to come out with World War One flamethrowers without eating my tongue? It was like whoop whoop whoop. Anyway, World War One flamethrowers and so many more things from the land of nuts and flakes and fruits and new scum. God, God was very upset with California. Very upset with California. It dropped on it more pestilence than it did any place else. But anyway, I see the audio is good. I think everything is okay. And I have to tell you, it's 11:05, and 11:11 will be the anniversary of my father's passing. And as you know, because you were there, let me see. There we go.
Yep.
He was always interested in what we do. He was always interested to the day he died in um, in affairs, in things. His thirst for knowledge was unquenchable.
Was
And
he conscious when he passed away, or was he unconscious?
he was conscious until about an hour before he did. Up until about we were doing a program that night,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to him, and he said, "You have a show to do. Go and do it." And I did. And when I came back, he was uh, exhaling his last breath.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then down to the very moment is you have things to do them. I don't know if I told you, but yesterday was his wedding anniversary.
Oh.
And yesterday in particular would have been his 68th. He made it to 65 years of marriage. And I don't know if I've ever put it here, but right next to him was always my mother. There she is sitting in this very chair. What can I say? I'm a very fortunate.
Yeah, both my parents were in comas when they passed away, and they didn't go peacefully. They did the Dylan Thomas. They raged at the dying of the light and
Mm,
wanted us to not allow it to happen. Um, and they're both 85 years old, and they both spent their lives abusing their bodies with drinking, with cigarettes, and with their diet.
mm.
So, the fact that they made it to 85, I just went to the dentist, and I don't know how many years ago, I had all four of my wisdom teeth taken out, and believe it or not, all four of them were coming in head first.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty amazing surgery. But what they did was they wrecked the bones on the jaw, and so I just found out 2 days ago that if I spend the rest of my life concentrating on cleaning my teeth, I'll be okay. But I have to have my teeth professionally cleaned every 3 months now, in order to keep the teeth, because the bone that was wrecked allowed stuff to percolate over the years. And this is just, it's like you get this information. For me, it's just like, okay. For my parents, it would have been the end of the world. And
Well, my father, one of the last things he said to me a few days before he died is somebody came over here full of commiseration, which my father did not enjoy.
no,
And he said, you know, when I was born, a 65-year-old man was an old man.
of course.
A 75-year-old man was ancient.
Yeah.
And very few ever made it to 85. I'm 86, 87 now. I don't feel like I have left anything on the table.
No.
If this is my time to go, this is my time to go.
Well, look at the bones they find in caves. It's like, okay, the not even bones they find in caves. The Iceman, Ötzi, the Iceman, who they found in Austria, Italy.
Mostly in the Alps, yes.
Yeah, he was a crone. He was probably 50 years old, and his body was a wreck. And he had all these medicinal tattoos, and he had a bag full of medicinal mushrooms, and he was a wreck.
Yep.
He had like black lung from fires that he had inside tents. And if you go even before Ötzi, you were lucky to make it to 30 years old. So, I just turned 63 on August 6th.
Oh, you old fart.
I don't feel any different than I did. I remember kindergarten. I remember the weird dark green shade of the bathroom. The walls were painted dark green. And
yeah, to save money on maintenance.
Apparently, but I remember that. I haven't felt that life has passed quickly or slowly. It's just simply passed. And at some point, I'll be. I mean, assuming I'm not hit by a car, or assuming I don't plunge out of the sky in a Boeing, I may end up on a bed just kind of waiting.
I'm Boeing. Just make sure you don't step into a Chinese plane.
Oh, there's absolutely no way. The Chinese have trouble enough with their railroads, but with their aircraft, they've now got two export aircrafts that they can't export because the wing spars, they can't make them meet international standards for safety.
Mm-hmm.
So they're using them to fly in China, and of course they're not telling us how many times these things shed their wings.
No, I don't think they bother pick up the remains anymore. Well, another one dropped. Okay, leave it there.
No,
Vegetation is going to cover it.
it's a weird thing. Our president is almost 80 years old, and he's a uniquely timeless man, and he's doing all these things that are proving that our politicians have lied to us for decades about how hard it is to solve problems. You were talking about Newsom. Newsom's gerrymandering plan is now 30 points underwater in California. So
Yeah.
he's wrecking the Democratic Party with this plan, and
Good.
this
Good.
is
I
California.
hope nobody stops him.
Yeah. No, because people aren't idiots. You ought to see the ads that they're running. They're saying that Trump is trying to rig the election, and the California gerrymandering plan is called something like the Election Integrity Act or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's like a totalitarian country where the ministry, well, it's like 1984, where the place you went and got tortured was called the Ministry of Love.
Yes.
Um,
And the Ministry of War was a Ministry of Peace.
a feast, yeah.
Yes.
I right before we went on air, I watched a bunch of screaming Somalis in Minnesota complaining about the fact that their Democratic Socialist mayoral candidate had his support yanked by the Democratic
Yeah.
Party.
Fateh couldn't happen to a little shit worse than him.
Well, it's really eerie because I forgot her name, the Somali in Congress.
Ilan Omar.
Omar is not alone. I saw TikTok videos with 10 or 15 different Elon Omars with speaking fluent American English and then lapsing into Somali, and they're all complaining that too much money in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, is going to the police. Now remember, yes, Minneapolis is the place where some suburb voluntarily dismantled their police department, and they became the home invasion capital of the world. And
yes. And they had to bring the police back because apparently social workers couldn't stop the onslaught.
Right. So
Surprise.
They're going to do it under they're claiming that this guy is still going to win. We'll see. But his plan is to have no police. And I say more power to him. If Minnesotans want absolutely no police and they want social workers or the Somalis to police them, that's fine. I don't find it frightening or dismaying at all. Americans should get what they vote for, and in Minneapolis, if they vote to completely dismantle the police, then all those cops will go to where they're needed, and it won't matter to me.
No, not at all. I mean, if this Fateh asshole in Minnesota wins or not, it's no skin off my back. I don't live in Minneapolis. I don't intend to. They can go to hell in a handbasket if they want to. On the other hand, it's interesting that the Democrat Party that has been unable to stop the advance of these little shits from New York to California, from Minneapolis to Texas, it now feels obligated to put a limit. I believe that what moved them to withdraw their endorsement of Fateh was his involvement in, don't tell anybody, election fraud in the primary.
Yeah.
Oh, so that thing that never happens actually did happen in the Democrats' own primary in Minnesota. Oh,
Well,
my.
don't forget the Democrats are accusing Trump of election fraud, which is why California has to gerrymander.
Right.
So election fraud never happens.
It wasn't gerrymandered enough.
Well, election fraud never happens except when it does. So,
yes.
No, I'm at this point in my life. I'm very happy at the great things that are happening, and I've never been more impatient with the people trying to step in the way. And we just had Trump just met with a bunch of Europeans about the Russo-Ukraine war, and my approach is like, who cares what the Europeans say? They're buying oil and gas from the Russians. They're slow walking any weapons to Ukraine. Like who gives a shit about what the Europeans have to say? And today the Ukrainians had multiple massive breakthroughs on the front lines.
Yes.
Remember Trump,
and yesterday they had multiple successful strikes on the refinery infrastructure.
Exactly.
Russia,
No.
they
Trump,
took out in one day. They took out 13% of the refining capacity of Russia.
Trump said after his meeting with Putin that the Ukrainians need to take the war to the Russians, and the fact that they've done that tells me that I think we've been secretly building up Ukrainian capabilities without advertising it. And
and the Ukrainians have been building up. Did you see their new missile?
Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
By the way, it looks like a B-2, doesn't it?
It does, and it's got a 3,000 mile range or something.
A 3,000 kilometers range, about 2,000 miles.
2,000 miles, which is fine.
It has the rocket engine for launching, and then it has an airplane engine for flying, and it carries 1.2 tons of explosives.
Yeah.
These assholes can pinpoint a target 2,000 miles away and blow it up. And by the way, with 1.2 tons of explosives, if they want to take it out, they will.
Well, that's the end of the airfield. That's the end of the military base. That's the end of... And
the refinery.
Okay, the Russians hit... We had a factory in Ukraine that was not producing military goods. The Russians hit it with 5 missiles and leveled it. Yes. And Trump said, stay tuned.
Yes.
And I think
literally.
And I think what the stay tuned is watch what the Ukrainians are going to do. And okay, there have been weirdo like the leaks from the Hegseth chat about the Israeli war, the Israelis' war against all their enemies, and there was some kind of leak from. It didn't matter. It wasn't anything, but there haven't been any significant leaks, and I think we're doing okay. Tulsi Gabbard fired half of the people working in the office of the director of national intelligence.
Yes. all of them apparatchiks of the war of the fourth or fifth order.
And I've read,
because people say, "Oh, Putin must be happy because we are firing our intelligence officers." The people that Tulsi Gabbard fired have nothing to do with intelligence, nor do they contribute any kind of intelligence to the process. These are apparatchiks who were essentially connected to newspapers and the Democratic Party and were leaking like sieves.
The office of the Director of National Intelligence doesn't have spooks.
No, it doesn't.
They have information given to them.
Yes.
So Tulsi Gabbard could be by herself in that whole. She could be the ODNI alone with a secretary as an assistant.
Yeah.
It it would still function. So
Yes.
firing half of the staff doesn't weaken us in the slightest.
No, no. And, it goes further than that because several agencies have already abrogated the contracts with the government employees in their agency. 400,000 yesterday.
Yeah.
And, I would definitely love this thing across the board, but I welcome the piecemeal approach as long as it continues.
Well, it's going to continue because there's no reason for it to stop. And
No,
okay,
on the contrary.
we fired some high-ranking member of the military DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, because he's the one who leaked the notion that we hadn't done any damage to the Iranians.
Yes, actually, there's already 2 fired for that.
Okay.
An admiral and a rear admiral.
And of course, the press was whining because he was an American hero, and it's like, no, he isn't. He's some politicized weirdo who. Okay, the guy who threw the Subway sandwich at the Fed in D.C. worked for the Department of Justice. So
that emphasis on the ED.
Yeah, and we you can't say about this guy he's somebody who should be respected because of the job he's in. No, he was crazy. He was drunk. He's crazy when he's not drunk. He's an idiot, and he's too politicized to be allowed anywhere near the Department of Justice.
Yes, it's a question of decorum, by the way. You cannot be walking around DC streets throwing sandwiches at law enforcement if you work for the Department of Justice. Period. End of story. It has nothing to do with his opinions. It has nothing to do with his political ideology. It has everything to do with his actions, which is perhaps even germane to our subject today. Big context.
Yeah, the context is he's a drunk leftist psycho who goes out and assaults police officers, and he's in the Department of Justice. Come on, that guy wouldn't be fit to be deputy dog in a town of 200 people.
Period. Yes.
Period.
And on the same thing, apparently John Bolton had an inconvenient visitor in the morning. I can't tell you, and you probably have seen this too, the rivers of bullshit that have been running through social media. This is revanchism. Trump is exacting revenge from his political enemies.
John Bolton? John Bolton is someone who Trump he's causing Trump to lie awake at night,
I don't think he causes anybody to lie awake at night, not even his wife. But the thing is, and I told you this in private, I'm going to say it now. I have no animosity towards John Bolton.
I liked him.
Yeah, I remember the fight to confirm him as
exactly. He was
Bush's ambassador to the UN.
Yep.
And how much the Democrats who now cry over him, how much they went after him with a passion that he harassed secretaries at the State Department. They all made up. And he was very effective at the UN and did a decent job considering that the UN is still a piece of shit. Then Trump selected him to be national security advisor, and he stayed there for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And for a year and a half, he did a fairly decent job. But in the end, there was a disagreement. He wasn't willing to give up on the notion that we had to confront Iran. And look at that. We ended up bombing Iran. If anything, he was ahead of his time.
Well,
Because
also
yes,
he
we
he
had to confront Iran.
he praised Trump for doing that.
Yes. Now he also has a lot of differences with Trump, and is not shy about saying them. And some of them may be true, some of them may not be true. I don't give a shit. He obviously came out with a book with all of them come out with a tell-all book, and there has to be some salacious material, or the thing doesn't sell. But that is it. I have a feeling that a lot of idiots who are condemning the Trump administration for going after this now hero of the Democrats, lo and fucking behold, these people have no standards. When they read the actual court order, a lot of them are going to have so much egg on their faces, they're going to be eating omelets for the rest of their lives.
Well, this is the thing. Regardless of how much I like John Bolton, if what he's being accused of is true, then yes, the raid is entirely
Yes,
justified. And I like Trump, and I support Trump more than any other American president. And if I found out he was in the pocket of Vladimir Putin, I would want him impeached and thrown out. You know,
yep,
it's you can't cut people breaks. The worst spy in the CIA ever produced was a guy named Aldrich Ames, and he was
yes,
protected by his superior, even though the superior knew that he was a spy, but he
yep,
was drinking buddies with the superior. So Aldrich Ames got a hell of a lot of people killed, and
yes, yes.
and he was protected simply because his superior liked him. And we can't do that. We can't do that.
No,
We if somebody is doing us our nation damage, they have to be removed from power at the minimum, and they have to pay some kind of price at the
L-
maximum.
let me give you a hypothetical. This is one of the things that is being rumored. I don't know if it is true or not any more than you do, or anybody else for that matter. Like I said, until we see the judicial order and find out the reasons for conducting the raid, the legal reasons, everything else is pure speculation. But one of the things is that he transmitted classified material to his family from a private server in his office. Does that remind you of anybody?
Of course.
Now, if they prosecute Bolton for this, can they turn around and prosecute somebody else who might have done the same thing and avert any kind of implication that is done for political reasons? To say, listen, buddy, I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, they do it, they pay for it.
Yeah, depending on what the statute of limitations is, sure.
Oh, for a conspiracy, there is no statute of, or rather, there is a statute of limitation, but it does not start running until the last action of the conspiracy.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have no idea how wonderfully that can be manipulated.
Sure.
And considering that the Hildebeest continues to make declarations and false allegations, you could jolly well say that the conspiracy is not over.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. I've never had access to classified information, but I've had access to people who did have access to classified information. And they did tell me things that was approved that I should know back when I was debunking videos. When I was debunking Palestinian and then Islamic State and then yet
Hollywood.
Houthi videos, yes. And I was given information, specifically, I was given information on multiple occasions. I was never told. There were never any. I was never told not to tell anybody. but it was where that information came from.
It's
But
implicit.
it was absolutely clear that that would not be a smart or moral thing to do. I was trusted, and I got very, very, very definite information about a couple of operations that I won't even talk about to you off the air. And it's because I was trusted with that information. Nobody said, don't tell anyone. It was clear that I was allowed this information. It wasn't classified. It was something that happened, and my knowledge of munitions would help determine what happened. And there were a couple other times where my knowledge of munitions, and specifically the damage caused by munitions, resulted in an outcome, an outcome that was being sought. Is this answer A or is it B? And I would no more send that information over. I mean, I wouldn't talk to it to people. And that wasn't even classified information. That was information it was open source information, but people didn't recognize what was happening in the video. And I had somebody tell me, this is what happened. Can you clarify by what is the aftermath? This is because a lot of times when you give an order to carry out a military operation, a lot of times you don't know what the end result is, because you don't have a camera on the nose of the bomb. A lot of times you do, but in a lot of cases you use dumb munitions, and a dumb munition can land where you want it to land, and it can land on a hospital, especially if you're fighting enemies who build right next to hospitals. So those were the types of things that I was given information on. And I never told anybody who gave me that information. And I simply wrote about what happened on Twitter, and the people who sent me the information found out my answer along with everybody else. That's how it worked. And it's over. I don't have any contacts with anybody. I'm out of that business now. And it was what it was 10 years ago.
Mm.
And that's it. I don't feel a need to write a book about it. I don't feel a need to go back on Twitter and talk about it. I don't feel a need to tell family members. And that's not even classified information. What if it had been classified information that I was sending over private communication systems? I mean, if it's true, then Bolton should have known better. He shouldn't have done it. And if there's a price that he has to pay, so be it.
And especially when it comes to information that he sent to his wife's email so that he would have it available to consult for his book or something like that, which is entirely possible. I'm not saying it did happen.
Yeah.
But it is the type of thing that does happen.
Well, what was the name of that little butthole who went to the National Archives and rammed classified documents into his underwear and his socks?
Sandy Berger. The guy who put documents in his balls to destroy them later because they compromised Clinton.
And Bill Clinton said, "Oh, that's Sandy. He just does that. He walks into his office and documents fall into his underwear." And Trump is not giving Bolton the same break that Clinton gave Sandy Berger. That's it. That's just it. That's Trump. Trump, just so people understand, Trump isn't calling up Kash Patel and saying, go get John Bolton. Kash Patel is getting John Bolton on his own. Tulsi Gabbard is firing people
I
on
think
her
John
own.
Bolton got himself.
Well, this is the thing that
He suffered like so many of them from verboria. He talked too much. He bragged about things he shouldn't have bragged, and now he's paying for it. And I do believe, however, that the selection of Bolton to be among the first is to open the door for Democrats,
Mhm.
and they're already preparing the field to plausibly deny that it's going after Democrats. No, we're going after Democrats and Republicans, eh, as long as they committed these crimes, and that would be the argument. I'm willing to bet on it.
Well, here's what people need to really keep in mind. Remember the Defense Secretary John Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis.
Yes.
The reason he was fired was because he always came to Trump to get Trump's approval on movements of a platoon in Syria, for example. And Trump would tell Mattis, who's in charge of this platoon? A captain? Okay, what's his background? He's from West Point. So doesn't he know what he's doing better than me, a businessman from Queens? Why are you asking me to make this decision when clearly this captain is better qualified to make this decision? So Tulsi Gabbard doesn't pick up the phone and talk to Trump and say, I'm about to fire 50% of the ODNI. Is that
No.
okay with you? No, she just does it.
No,
And
she's got her marching orders to clean up the department, and that is it. And if she fucks up, there'll be hell to pay. And if she succeeds, there'll be medals of honor. But
exactly.
but
And
she doesn't have to get authorization for every fucking move.
Exactly. And whatever's happening to Bolton, Trump didn't put his seal of approval on it. Because he's got, Bolton isn't a big fish to fry. There are bigger fish to fry. There are global fish
yes.
that are being fried right now. And
yes.
and Trump is concentrating on them.
I'm waiting for somebody to explain why Chelsea Clinton got 82 million from USAID.
Mhm.
I'm willing, I'm willing to wait a little bit, but I want somebody to explain to me how come the Soros Foundation got 240 billion from the USAID that went on to finance the summer of our discontent in 2020.
Well, and see, it's really shocking how much the world has changed. We had the Summer of Love, which was the summer where people burned down cities. It actually went on and
killed 50 people nationwide, including children and police officers.
And they were all black.
Yes.
And today, you go on YouTube, and there's a channel called The Exhaustion is Real, and all it does is show black people behaving badly. And YouTube leaves it alone. It gets ads. It's not, and whether or not you agree with this notion that this is something that should be pointed out and et cetera, et cetera. The phrase black exhaustion was coined by a black writer who is using it to describe the exhaustion that black people feel living in this racist hellhole of the United States. And it's been co-opted by conservatives, black exhaustion, meaning we're exhausted with this kind of behavior. And that would have gotten your channel nuked on YouTube 3 years ago. And today it's not only allowed, it's
much less we were nuked.
Of course. So the zeitgeist has changed, the culture has changed, and all these people had a nice long ride. I read today that they're thinking of deporting the Maryland father of three
To
to
Uganda.
Uganda. How the hell did
I,
that happen?
well, I'll tell you because it's beautiful. I mean, you just have to leave the arrogance of these psychopaths
Mhm.
to determine their fate. He was offered a plea deal,
Mhm.
and if he pled guilty to his very well known and documented crimes, he would do a couple of years jail time in the US and then he would be deported to Costa Rica. But if he refused to take the plea, they would deport him to Uganda. Why Uganda? Because the judge that wanted him back from El Salvador wanted him back from El Salvador because he had a previous order by a judge that said that he could not be deported back to El Salvador because he feared persecution in El Salvador. But that doesn't mean he cannot be deported to any one of another 180 countries around the world that would accept him.
Can you
Now,
imagine?
as it happens, I was in DC 4 weeks ago with the ambassador from Uganda. A wonderful woman, by the way, extremely intelligent and extremely nice. And we were talking about Uganda's efforts to climb back from that image of Idi Amin Dada eating the liver of his opponents into modernity, mm, to climb back from the image of uh, Yoni Netanyahu rescuing hostages in Entebbe to a country where we can do business. And I imagine that when somebody from the State Department approached her, if we deport him to Uganda, would you take him? I said, yeah, to any time. Send him over. Glad to help. And the son of a bitch, as it stands now, will be deported to Uganda,
Yeah,
which is a far better placement than we would imagine. I mean, it's not Idi Amin's Uganda anymore. But isn't that beautiful, though?
I saw that and I just started laughing and I thought,
Yes.
sucker got trolled by the master troller. You
Oh.
you 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 know.
And how about uh, that was Abrego Garcia? That was the Maryland father.
Mm,
How about Mahmoud, the imbecile who was organizing uh, pro-Hamas protests in
mm,
Colombia?
mm.
He just had his permanent resident card, uh, uh, what you would call it,
Revoked.
recalled, revoked by Marco Rubio, who's fast becoming one of my favorite people in DC.
Before you go on, Rubio has promised to look into 55 million visas.
Yes, yes. Now, there was a time in this country, yeah, because 55 million is all the people that we have here on all kinds of statuses, H1s, students,
Yep,
artists,
he's going to review them all.
geniuses,
Yep.
tourists, all of them. I remember in the 70s, if you wanted to come to the US, you had to sign a sworn statement that you did not belong or supported any organization whose aim it was to topple the US government
Mm,
or to promote communism.
yep.
And if it turns out that you did, whatever kind of visa you had would be instantly revoked.
Yep.
Uh, there were people who, after 40 years of living in the US as citizens, had their citizenship revoked and their asses deported to be tried in, say, Germany for war crimes, because it turns out they were uh, uh, high-level employees of concentration camps, to put it mildly. So what Rubio is proposing is nothing new. It's something we always did, but in the Clinton era we stopped doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the result is that we filled America with enemies of America.
Sure.
That is no way to run a business. So now it turns out that Mahmoud Khalil not only organized protests in favor of Hamas, a terrorist organization that has killed Americans, that has taken Americans hostages, that is determined to the annihilation of an American ally. No, he also promoted the harassment of Jewish students, American Jewish students in their own home.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need that kind of vermin in this country.
No.
So where are they going to deport his ass? I don't know, but I think that Al-Shara may have a pretty good idea of what to do with him.
Yeah, I read something that the Israelis are doing so well in Gaza that Hamas is now screeching for another ceasefire and another round of talks, and Netanyahu's like, you had your chance.
Yeah. Too late.
Too late.
Too late. You shouldn't have rejected. When we told you the last time that this is the last offer, that was the last offer. You shouldn't have rejected it. Now, what was it? What was that movie? My name is Inigo, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father and
Prepare
prepare to die. Yeah.
That's Netanyahu.
Yep.
My name is Benjamin Netanyahu. You killed my people. Prepare to die. And that's the end of it.
Yep.
As it should be, by the way.
I saw a video today by an Iranian. He's covering what's happening in Iran live, and there were massive riots all over Iran today, and the IRGC is having trouble controlling them all. The explosions continue. Multiple gigantic simultaneous explosions all across Iran, targeting, their refineries, their power grid, just everything. And the mullahs basically have nothing left in their quiver to fight against this. And we still have people
doing well. They're toast.
They're toast, and they have to be. The context of why we bombed them was because they were saying, we're going to build an atomic bomb and then we're going to use it.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, then we're going to have to bomb you. Are you sure you want to do that? Okay, the Russians announced today that they have intelligence that Estonia is going to invade Russia.
Estonia.
The Estonians,
what happened? La Repubblica di San Marino wasn't available.
The Estonian armed forces altogether consist of 6,000 people. They have no main battle tanks, and they have no armed aircraft. And they're going to invade Russia. So the fear is that they're preparing for a false flag attack, and it'll be so convincing that NATO will not respond in defense of Estonia.
This is so much bullshit.
Yep.
This comes from the same drunken bastards in the FSB.
Yep.
Who think that the Baltic states are the underbelly of NATO.
Of NATO, yeah.
That they can invade there because it's the underbelly of NATO. I have bad fucking news for them. NATO has no underbelly.
No.
Any attack anywhere in NATO will trigger Article 5, and there are a lot of people in Europe right now who are itching for that.
Absolutely.
Because they made mistakes. They make huge mistakes. none more than Germany, and they're paying a very high price for that. And they are kind of like in a fucking pickle
that they
where
put
they have to,
themselves into.
yes, that's what I said, they made mistakes. And, they have to continue buying Russian oil either directly or indirectly. There was a big hullabaloo this week because the Ukrainians destroyed the gas line that crosses Ukraine, uh, carrying Russian oil, I'm sorry, Russian gas to Hungary and Slovenia. And
Too
that's a
bad.
big deal
It is a
because
big deal.
they cut off the supplies of I'm sorry, both oil and gas. And Hungary and Slovenia don't have any other way to provision themselves with oil and gas. And Europe had even finally made a begrudging permission for them to continue to receive this until they figure out different suppliers. But the thing is that it did happen. Now everybody's upset with the Ukrainians. By the way, the Ukrainians have seen their land used by Russia to sell oil and gas to Hungary and Slovenia so that they can use that money to wage war on Ukraine.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Tell the fucking Dutch to open up their valves. Tell the Norwegian.
Bingo!
It's
Bingo!
I don't know.
The Dutch
I
can
understand.
supply gas to everybody if they so much as relax these absurd green policies that they have.
Yeah.
So, and you see that, and how can we really get out of this pickle? One possibility is the Russians invade Estonia, and then we drop a building. We make anvils rain on the head of Putin, and that's the end of it. And we can
Mhm.
resume, repair the gas and oil pipelines, and goodbye. So it's a huge miscalculation on the part of the Russians and their friends to assume that they can attack a part of NATO and NATO won't care.
Well,
Um,
the Russians are idiots. After the communists took over in 1917, Estonia, declared its independence, and they immediately created this special operations unit called the Kupriyanov Battalion. And the symbol of the Kupriyanov Battalion is a skull and crossbones. And the Kupriyanov Battalion still exists. They're saboteurs. If the Russians go into Estonia, they're going to have more trouble pacifying Estonia than they are in Ukraine. I mean, the just with this one battalion, sure, Estonia ended up in the Soviet Union, but the Russians paid a massive, massive price bringing Estonia into the Soviet Union based on this one battalion that still exists. So, and besides, okay, there's all these claims that the Russians are going to assemble 100,000 men in order to participate in this war game about shutting off the Suwalki Gap. Where are the Russians going to get 100,000 men?
Not in North Korea.
Yeah, exactly. The North Koreans have had enough.
Number one, in order to, this is another one of the bullshit things, and everything has to do with Königsberg and its status as an isolated Russian outlet. Uh, the Suwalski Gap runs pretty much along the border between Poland and Lithuania. The Russians cannot do anything in the Suwalski Gap without essentially invading Poland and Lithuania.
Mm-hmm.
Within an hour of the Suwalski Gap, you have something like 600 warplanes, NATO warplanes. Uh, I don't think the Russians would survive 6 hours in that area. I really don't. As a matter of fact, I don't think St. Petersburg will survive 12 hours if the Russians invade the Suwalski Gap.
Well, here's something that NATO did. They created what are called enhanced forward presence. And around
Yes,
the Suwalki Gap, there's an enhanced forward presence of something like 10 countries.
yes,
And it was this unit was put there. It's run by the United States, but it's got flag troops from multiple NATO countries. It's there specifically so that if the Russians try anything in the Suwalki Gap, they'll be attacking the troops of all of
yes.
NATO, and all of NATO will
The grand total
respond.
of the grand total of the rapid response units is 350,000.
Yeah, yeah.
350,000.
And the first ones can start retaliating in about 40 minutes.
Yes, I mean it's really, really. By the way, we are discussing this openly. I don't think it's going to happen.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anybody stupid enough to carry it forward. I think it's the idle talk of morons who have no idea what they're talking about. Just so we're clear, we're not discussing this because I think it might happen. It won't happen. If, if it did, it wouldn't last 48 hours.
Well, and as you pointed out, let's say the Russians are stupid enough to try it, they get pounded, so they retaliate with tactical nukes. Well, people think that's the end of the world. No. What happens is that they're hit with the largest conventional response in human history, and all their nukes end up under 200 feet of rubble that they'll never be able to dig them out. And that's the end of that. We're not going to have World War III.
No.
Nobody's going to come in. The Chinese aren't going to come in to defend the Russians. The North Koreans aren't going to come in. The Iranians aren't going to come in, and the Indians aren't going to come in. When Russia picks up the phone and asks for India to join it in World War III, Modi's going to go, and then hang up the phone.
You think he's going to be that loquacious?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe he'll go and then hang up the phone. I don't know.
That's it. No. It's already little rocket man in North Korea. It's let it be known that we're not sending more people to die in Ukraine.
No.
The Chinese said a few, and they've already said we're not sending more people to die in Ukraine. I don't know. I think Putin has an inkling. Otherwise, he would have never gone to Alaska.
True.
People talk about how Trump gave Putin backing by seeing him in Alaska.
Oh, for God's sake.
And they forget two things. The first one, that the image of the little garden gnome from hell arriving in Alaska hat in hand, pleading his case, it's not good. The show of force that the U.S. did in Alaska of having the little garden gnome from hell walk alongside a shit ton of F-35s, F-22, and as he got to the podium, a P-2 and F-35 and F-22 overhead. This is what you're messing with, you little shit.
Mhm.
Now, what do you think that can stop this? We had at that base in Alaska on that day more firepower than will be necessary to obliterate what's left of the Russian army. In case people haven't figured this one out. And once Trump did this, Putin was in a pickle. Now Trump calls him up and says, you need to meet with Zelensky. Where? At what time?
Mhm.
I mean, I remember the Turks telling me 3 years ago how Putin had no desire to negotiate, how he throve in chaos, how whether the war continues or not is the same thing to him because it allows him to have full control of every aspect in Russia, fuck every oligarch, and keep more for himself, which was the situation 3 years ago. Right now, Trump is telling Putin who to talk to, and he does. And if he doesn't reach a deal with Zelensky, that's it. There's no more. It's already been announced, you know. If they reach a deal, I'm willing to have a third meeting, a tripartite meeting with the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia to make sure that we nail a deal, but only if they reach an agreement. What are the odds of Zelensky and Putin reaching an agreement if they actually do meet? Zero. It's not going to happen.
See, this is the thing that people. I told you earlier. I'm very happy about what's happening, and yet I'm becoming more impatient with naysayers and doom criers and gore crows and ghouls. And in say 1942, Hitler was in a position of thriving on chaos and
Yeah.
um, enjoying the frantic activity of his opponents. But in April of 1945, when Hitler was in his bunker and he was telling everyone about armies that no longer existed, how they were going to come in and defeat the Soviets. And I guess apparently a historian has found more information. And in the bunker, when Hitler was meeting with his generals, in all the little rooms, the bunker was quite a big bunker. They were having orgies. Everyone was drunk and they were having orgies. And all the young ones got out. They all said, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir, and then split right before Hitler shot himself in the mouth. And the thing about the Putin Hitler comparisons now is that the Russians, by the end of the war, the Nazis had no oil or gas, and the Russians are rapidly approaching that position. They've been reduced to moving their oil and gas by railroad, and we're talking such vast distances that 3 guys with a couple of sticks of dynamite can come out and blow up an entire train full of gas and oil.
Did you see what happened to the fuel train in Crimea yesterday?
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
They destroyed the Air Force headquarters in Sebastopol, and then the fuel train that was going to southern Ukraine, but never made it past middle of Crimea. It's incredible how the Ukrainians are upping the ante.
Mm-hmm.
And the Russians have less and less. This is not even going to be close now.
Mm-hmm.
When the war started, we both said if Putin doesn't take Kiev in a week, he's not going to ever. We don't know how long it's going to last because nobody has the strength to win. Putin is going to destroy a lot of stuff in Ukraine. But the longer this goes, the worse it's going to be for him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're getting to the worst. All that's left for him to put any warm bodies into the meat grinder in Ukraine is a draft, a mobilization.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to finally break the honeymoon between the Russian people and the dwarf. It's not going to be even close. So, you know, he they can do whatever they want, and people here can speculate on those meetings. Did you notice? Not only was the meeting with Putin not a triumph for Putin, but his virtual surrender to Trump's will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What did Trump do then? He picked up the phone and called on Zelensky, Starmer, Macron, Rutte, Meloni, that idiot Postula, von der Merden, and called them to the Oval Office like the school principal calls students to his office. Did you notice that?
Also, did you notice that he gave Maloney the best seat in the House?
Oh,
Right next to him?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Every time. At the table in the Oval Office, Meloni was queen for a day.
Yep.
He reminded me of Bette Davis.
I like the way, I love the way she speaks English. And she said, "I want to thank you, Donald, Mr. President." So, you know, they're on first name basis.
Yes, they are. The one who's not on a first name basis is Postula van der Merden, who was politely asked to leave the room because now what comes needs to be discussed among elected leaders.
Mhm.
This is telling this bitch who thinks she's president of anything, bureaucrats are not allowed when the grown-ups talk.
Mhm.
And they kicked her out of the room. I thought it was delightful.
Of course.
Of course, 2 days later, the White House announces the deal struck with Europe for the trade agreement. You know, the one that was never going to happen?
Mhm.
Okay. Europe has to eliminate all of the non-tariff barriers.
Mhm.
It has to import agricultural products from the US. It has to import cars from the US, and actually, it has to consider US standards equal to European standards for every intent and purpose. That's one of the ways they've kept American cars out of the European marketplace by creating standards that are slightly different. So, oh, well, you don't conform to E5, so fuck you. Not anymore. Not anymore. And guess what? The US gets to charge 15% tariffs on everything, and they don't. And there is a pretty good reason for that, because in the way the European taxing system works, they can refund taxes to producers for articles that are exported. We don't have that. We don't have that possibility because our taxes are not, our federal taxes are not like sales taxes that you can refund if the product is exported. But they do. So the 15% is to keep a balance on pricing. It's absolutely beautiful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. And all of a sudden, that trade war with Europe and the Europeans are going to bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And he just opened a market of 400 million people to American products that were barred from entry.
Well, did you notice how Carney of Canada, the way he's looking these days? He's wandering around like this, like somebody whacked him over the head with a ball peen.
They
hammer.
did.
Yep.
The moment this was announced, Carney said, okay, we're going to suspend all of our tariffs to the US. because he finally realized what everybody knew from the beginning is you have no negotiating power, moron. You depend almost entirely on trade with the U.S. to survive.
So, what's your answer? Prior to Trump, did no American president solve all these issues because he was incompetent or because he was paid off in one way or another? And I don't necessarily mean cash.
No. Eh, Number one, what you don't mention, ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how trade works. I may have to drop back on your infamous statement, nobody knows how anything works.
Mm-hmm.
Most American presidents are detached and ignorant of how this works. Eh, some more than others, but Biden didn't have a clue. Obama didn't have a clue. Eh, Clinton was totally out of here. Plus, he was bought because as long as they gave him $500,000 to talk for 40 minutes in Milan, he was fine. So it's a mix of all of the above. For the past 40 years, we have not had a president. Reagan knew and he used it well, and he did it beautifully with Japan
My only
and Europe.
problem, my only problem with Reagan was that he was too caught up in the notion that, as was once said, he and Tip O'Neill could argue all day and then go to dinner at night.
Yeah.
And there's something good to be said about that, but when we're talking about the actual lives of people like you and me, then the argument shouldn't be about the president's personal relationship with Tip O'Neill.
But it did work. Going back to our theme today, give us the context. Reagan had to contend with a Democrat Congress. He couldn't get anything passed through Congress without Democrat support. That relationship with Tip O'Neill allowed him to work with Tip O'Neill in compromises that allowed, for instance, his tax cut bill. And did he have to give something in exchange?
Of
Yes.
course.
The amnesty of 86.
The outlawing of machine guns.
For
That
instance.
also happened in 86.
But that was the way to get the tax cuts and get this economy moving again. Because if you remember, by the time Reagan came to the White House, our armed forces were in total decay. Carter destroyed our armed forces. We were incapable of conducting a rescue operation with 2 helicopters in Iran without crashing them into the desert. Um, the economy was spent. We had 12% unemployment, 17% mortgages were up to 17, 18%. CDs were 24% for 7 days, not 24% for the 7 days, but 24% a year for 7 days CDs. The economy was in total disarray. The housing market was destroyed. The state of malaise of the years of stagflation, it was such that many people doubted if the U.S. could recoup, and recoup it did in 3 years.
Well, think about that. Mark Twain once said, "The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated." Think how many times we've been told by our leaders that the U.S. is done and will never come back. And
Yeah.
what is it? Managed decline or something like that.
I don't believe in any of that shit.
No, I don't either. This is a unique country in that we believe that certain rights are inherent, that we have them as soon as we're born. How many countries in the world have a Bill of Rights? You know, Um, it's this is a unique country, and this is why so many people. Okay, out of 330 million, we have 55 million visas that we know of, and then another 10 or 11 million illegals on top of the 55 million visas. So those are all people who wanted to come here, and proportionately, okay, you get somebody like Rosie O'Donnell moving to Ireland. Well, that's Rosie O'Donnell. Look at the caliber of the person. Look at the caliber of the people. Rosie O'Donnell. What the hell was her name? Ellen DeGeneres. I think Sharon Stone moved to Italy. I mean, these are all these.
Well, at least she had some. At least she had more brains than the other two degenerates.
Well, this is wreckage. These people are wreckage, and they're making this utterly childish move for no reason. Like as if Trump is going to come after Rosie O'Donnell. He's got it on his calendar. You know, he writes Rosie in big blood red letters. I mean, come on. It's there's something now that it's called main character syndrome, and these people all suffer from main character syndrome. They think that Trump is thinking about them all the time, and you know, Trump doesn't think about Rosie O'Donnell until someone brings her up, and then he makes fun of her and then moves on.
Let me answer to a guy in YouTube who is apparently upset because we're not engaging with him, even though I believe we have been explaining for what is it now, 3 years, that we do not engage with the chat in YouTube. Please come to Odyssey. But he's asking me to explain some things about Israel. There you go. I hope that is clear enough. And Robert De Niro and George Clooney, Jimmy Kimmel. Who gives a shit about all of these has-beens, for crying out loud? I would suggest that we need to raise money and put a charter plane to take any one of these assholes who want to go to Europe, and we'll pay for the trip as long as they don't come back.
I saw this documentary about the making of the movie The Deer Hunter. And The Deer Hunter came out in 1980, I think.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah. So, and everything they were saying in the documentary was stupid. 1978. So, there's a famous Russian roulette scene where captured American soldiers are made to play Russian roulette by their Vietnamese captors. Now, this never happened. This is fake. Robert De Niro and I forgot his name, Christopher Walken are method actors, and method actors don't know how to act. What they do is they use their real emotions.
Yes.
And so what they did during that scene was they loaded the gun with live ammunition, and then without allowing the actors to see which were dummies and which were live ammunition, the actors were given the gun. There was no live ammunition in the gun, but as far as the actors knew, there could be live ammunition in the gun.
They were led to believe there was, yes.
Yes, and they agreed to this. Now, this is not only stupid. This is deadly. That as that idiot actor who shot and killed the director, Baldwin. You can't have live ammunition on a set. You cannot have live ammunition on the set. John Wayne made a movie called Iwo Jima, and he was almost killed because they were using live ammunition in machine guns to strafe.
Yep.
And the guy firing the machine gun miscalculated, and they left it in the movie. You see John Wayne duck right before this burst of machine gun fire hits the sand behind him, and this documentary was talking about the master. The last time I saw The Deer Hunter, I was bored out of my mind. It's like 3 hours long, and it's got some weird connection between shooting deer and being honorable, and it's just like, one shot, man, one shot. And I just thought this was the peak of this guy's career. He made this movie where in all the drunk scenes, the actors were really drunk. They improvised all their lines. So it's like, where's the acting? Where's the art? You're just filming a bunch of drunks. And they did their own stunts and they got hurt. There's no acting involved. And Michael Cimino, how many movies did Michael Cimino make? I don't know, a handful, a tiny handful. I remember being bored the first time I saw The Deer Hunter. It was just like, Jesus, is this scene still going? He's up in the mountains and they're playing like Germanic trumpet music and he sees the deer and he shoots him once and the deer goes and falls down, and he's proven his honor as a man. And it's like, but why? How? And there's a very confusing.
Why does it sound like something Godard would have done?
Also, it was very confusing because in Vietnam, the scene opens with a village and there's a Vietnamese soldier killing Vietnamese civilians, and there's a pile of dead Americans, and one of them sits up, and it's Robert De Niro, and he burns a guy with a flamethrower. Then the helicopter lands, and oh boy, it just happens to be his buddies, his two buddies, who he's in a completely different unit. And then a bunch of explosions happen, and then suddenly they're all underwater in a cage. And it's like, I need more information.
More context.
More context. And there was all this hoopla about the actors were Thai who could speak fluent Vietnamese, and they had a lot of trouble getting the Thai actors to slap the Americans hard, because they claim that touching the head in Thailand is it's something you don't do except to your wife or something. I don't know. And so, they were getting these actors they had to slap the Americans, and it was traumatic for the Thai actors. And everything about this was just like, God, what a stupid, and one of the actors was almost dead from lung cancer, John Casal, who was dating Meryl Streep. And
more than dating, there were a couple. She was my neighbor in New York, and she was devoted to.
Yeah, exactly. She never recovered from his death, and
no.
So everything I learned from this documentary, it was like, it was all ugly. It was all stupid. It was all, and I don't know. I didn't know why did you make this documentary? The movie was 50 years ago. Almost 50, 48, 40, whatever. And it's only remembered by a handful of cinemaphiles, and Robert De Niro is now just this clown, and he makes stupid movies where he plays Donald Trump over and over and over again. And then he goes up to a microphone and goes, "Fuck Trump." I don't know. It's just, I've had to stop watching so many YouTube channels that have nothing to do with politics because they're now obsessed with Trump. And it's like, okay, gone. I'm not giving people chances anymore. If you can't deal with Trump, there's something wrong with you.
Even I used to watch some channels with news from Ukraine, and I stopped because the little shit it started actually spouting the Democrat talking points on Trump, and it's like, I have enough with the local assholes. I don't need one imported from Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. I had to find channels that never mentioned politics whatsoever, and
Right.
they were all claiming, "Oh, Trump's going to sell out Ukraine," and it's like, okay, let's say that Trump completely cut off all weapons shipments to Ukraine. That still leaves all of Europe.
And some 30 other countries.
And some 30 other countries. Do you think the Ukrainians, can you imagine the deals the Ukrainians would offer all the Middle Eastern countries with money? Give us weapons, send us special forces, and we'll let you dig for all the rare metals you want.
Yeah.
So once again, it's like attacking us for the Cuba blockade when almost every other country in the world is free to trade with Cuba. But since we don't, that it's our fault that the Cubans are all prostitutes now, and they have no electricity.
No, not all of them. The girls under 4 are not.
True.
And those over 80, I understand, have abandoned the practice. Cubans. Nobody, but nobody is more responsible for that shithole than the Cubans. Everybody expected to get something for nothing, and they got shafted. Boo-hoo. This system, the regime, wouldn't survive 48 hours if there weren't enough Cubans in Cuba willing to lend its support. The only thing with Maduro, for instance, let's move on to South America for a second. Somebody did ask us at the beginning about Maduro and what I believe to be his very speedy demise. I believe that his lifespan is now measured in hours. For years, people in the Venezuelan opposition that I know here in Miami were asking me, and they were asking me to go to their shows and all that jazz to speak. And they were asking me, why doesn't the US help us? Hmm. And I refused to go to their shows and said, listen, if I go to your show and you ask me that question in your show, I'm going to say, give me one reason why we should. One reason why we should spend one tax dollar or drop one drop of the blood of one American son fighting this asshole Chavez and then Maduro. Give me a reason. I want to know, why should we do it? The last time we tried to give you a hand, we were the imperialist motherfuckers who destroyed the future of Venezuela. Why do you want us to go back?
Yeah, I remember that. Suddenly, everyone was jabbering about Tio Sam and
Right.
American imperialism.
The
It's like,
hated
fuck off.
gringo,
Yeah.
They invaded everywhere. Well, we tried to help you civilize, but you didn't want to do it. Now you have a problem of your own making. Why should we help? Never mind why don't we? Why should we? And unless one of you can come up with an acceptable answer, my own answer is we don't. There's no reason for us to give you a fucking hand. That changed. And that changed when the regime in Venezuela went from a socialist shithole exploiting its own people to becoming a drug cartel killing Americans in our own streets.
Mhm.
So why should we topple Maduro, hold his ass before a judge in Miami, and put him in ADX Florence for the rest of his hopefully short life, Well, because the actions of the Venezuela regime compromise our national security i- in alliance with China and uh, uh, Iran, and their alliance with the cartels run by a Venezuelan cartel, the head of which is the president of Venezuela, instrumental in the importation into the US of fentanyl, cocaine, eh, heroin. Why the hell should we put up with this shit? Now it changed. But it's not that my opinion on foreign interventions changed. It didn't. What changed is the context.
Mhm.
It used to be a Venezuelan problem. Now it's our problem. Big mistake. Maduro should have stayed out of the drug business. We have now sent aircraft carriers, landing ships, cruisers, planes, actually more planes than Russia has, 6,500 Marines. You know what 6,500 Marines can do in Venezuela?
Topple the government.
Whatever the fuck they want. They can topple the government, they can get the women pregnant, they can do anything they want because there's nothing in Venezuela that can oppose 6,500 Marines
Well,
with their support.
Maduro is the typical dictator in that he refuses to train his troops because he's terrified they'll overthrow
Because
him.
if they're by, they will turn on him. Now
Yep.
Maduro came out last night after a circus of weeks of defiance. He came out last night. He's going to open the door of all the jails in Venezuela so that political prisoners can walk free. What, political prisoners? Until yesterday, you denied there being any political prisoner. Now you're going to free your political prisoners. Oh my, what a gesture.
Well, did you see his brother showing off his karate skills that he would use against the American invaders?
The question is, how are you going to get his hand out of his ass?
No, Venezuela. When I lived in Venezuela, it was okay. They had the armed forces, they had the National Guard, and they had the police. And basically, you bribed everybody. Everybody was on the take.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a vibrant smuggling from the Netherlands Antilles into Venezuela, and the National Guard was in charge of protecting the coasts and borders. And if, let's say, you brought in 10 smuggling boats, you left one parked on the beach for the National Guard, and they let the other 9 go. And the National Guard would collect everything from the speedboat, and they would put it in the National Guard commissary where all the Americans would come to buy blue jeans and peanut butter and all the things that weren't available. In Venezuela, for example, my father told me once that Venezuelan made light bulbs. You would put them in and you would flip the switch and the light would go on and then it would go off because the filament would burst.
Yeah, very bright and then go off.
Yep. And so you had to smuggle light bulbs in from the Netherlands Antilles, which meant you had to get them from the commissary. You had to bribe people, and at the same time, the Venezuelans were complaining that the Americans weren't doing things fast enough or good enough or whatever, and they were setting these massive roadblocks of corruption up.
Hey, you tell the story. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I found one of my father's notebooks, and he's got a list of a National Guard colonel, a colonel in the Venezuelan secret police, and a colonel in the Venezuelan Air Force. And these are all the people who he had to bribe on a monthly basis, just so they wouldn't come around and harass my family. And those guys were getting bribes from every American in the oil camp. So essentially, once a month, you took an envelope full of cash. You took 3 envelopes, one for the head of the National Guard, one for the head of the secret police, and one for the head of the Air Force. Don't ask me why it was the Air Force and not the Army. It could be that it would be an Army colonel in a different area, and we just happen to have an Air Force colonel in our area. But, you know, and those guys would also help you out. In Venezuela, I don't know what it's like today, but at the time, the Venezuelan police would pull an American over, and you would go to the trunk of your car and take out your Venezuelan arrest emergency bundle, and it had a hammock and several changes of clothes. And the police would take you to the prison, and they would open the prison door and put you in a large cell full of maybe 100 people. And there was a place for you to hang up your hammock. You had to arrange for your own food. You had your own clothes, your own drinks. And then you had someone on the outside who would negotiate with the police for your release. And my father was able to get it to the point where he didn't have to go through the whole arrest process. When they would threaten to arrest him, he would just pay him off right there. So that was Venezuela when things were working. And to get Venezuelans to vote, they would be promised washing machines by the political party. Vote for me and I'll give you a washing machine. And in Venezuela, it is a legal requirement to vote. And everybody would dip their index finger into purple ink. And so the Venezuelans police would go around and check everybody's index finger to make sure they voted. And, you know, on one hand, it's like, oh, 100% voting. Yeah, but it as Stalin said, it doesn't matter. The number of voters doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is people who count the votes.
Who count the votes?
Yeah, yes. And
Venezuela, there are too many counties in America with more registered voters than inhabitants.
Yeah, and you know, we've got corruption. We've got major corruption issues, but you can't really understand. Like, okay, I don't know what percentage of American police municipalities now have body cameras, and the body cameras protect us. You might not think so. You might think it's an invasion of your privacy, but now if an officer turns off his body camera, for example, there was an officer here in California, of course, who very stupidly arrested a woman, and when she was in the back of the car, she said, "I'll have sex with you if you let me go." This was all picked up on the camera. So he turned off his camera and he went in the back and had sex with her. And then he realized he'd locked himself in the back of his car. So he had to call for help. And then officers who came had their own body cameras on, and they opened up the back and said, "What are you doing?" Oh, he had a story. He got fired and arrested, and all sorts of bad things happened to him. But as bad as the corruption is in our country, you can't imagine how bad it is in a country like Venezuela,
or Mexico, or Argentina, or Argentina, even for that matter.
Where if you have a truck full of goods, you have to pay off at every if you're raising corn and you want to get it to the market, you have to pay off like 40 levels of people.
Yeah. You see, in places in Argentina or in Mexico, that California cop would have never been fired.
Exactly.
The two arriving cops would have fucked the woman too.
Yep.
And then him.
Yep.
And then, just Make the woman come once a week for more.
Exactly. Rob her and then threaten her with death if she didn't come once a week.
Please. Look at Mexico. The president. Look at this. We're talking about Maduro as the capo, as the boss of the Cartel de los Soles. How about Sheinbaum
Hmm.
running cover for the Mexican cartels?
Hmm.
How about Sheinbaum having cartel people put into the Senate of Mexico as his yes man, or rather her yes man? It, it's a level of corruption. Yes, we do have corruption in the US, but these other examples are totally corrupt. Uh, Shift to shift is corrupt. I guarantee you that's Jacqueline, what her name is. Hey, yo, um, Crocker?
Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is corrupt to her sagging tits. Uh, but Congress is not corrupt. There are corrupt people in Congress. The
Also,
whole thing is not corrupt yet.
I don't think Jasmine Crockett would pick up the phone and order somebody killed. I don't think she would do that.
No, but that would happen in Venezuela, Mexico, and Argentina.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that Jasmine Crockett wouldn't do it out of morality. I don't know what her morals are other than what I
Well,
see.
since the institution is not really totally corrupt, there would be repercussions, wouldn't it?
There would be repercussions. It could be that she wouldn't have anyone killed because that's a line she doesn't want to cross morally, or it could be that she just doesn't want to deal with the repercussions. But in countries like Venezuela and Argentina and Mexico, there are no repercussions.
No.
You know, there was this very, very sad story. They could get nobody to be the police chief in this town, and finally, a teenage girl agreed to be the police chief, and she lasted about 2 weeks before she was gunned down by the cartel. And you know, we don't have a situation like that in this country. Not even in Chicago. Even in Chicago, there is a functioning police force. There are not enough of them, so they can't make enough of a difference. But they do have a functioning police force. And there are places in Mexico where there are no police because they've all been killed and nobody wants to become a police, or the cartel members wear police uniforms. And, you know, so we don't know what corruption is in comparison to the majority of the world, maybe? Would you say the majority of the world is as corrupt as Mexico?
No. Oh, wait a second. The majority of, yes.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yes. Not every country in the world, but the majority, yes.
That's what I think.
I don't think you're going to see Mexican corruption in most of Europe. Notice I didn't say all of Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though I think that Europe, generally speaking, is more corrupt than the US. And by the way, there's context. Context is so important. Some people may come and tell me, oh, but the police in Columbus, New Mexico are terribly corrupt. They were using the parking lot of the police station as a staging place for the traffic of gangs into Mexico. Yes, they were. And it was police in Columbus, New Mexico doing it. Corrupt as Mexicans, the police in Columbus, New Mexico. Is that the same in New York? No. Is that the same in most of the US? No.
Also, who stopped them?
Not so corrupt people in the US.
Exactly. So there was a town in New Mexico where a sheriff ran his department like a king, and they sicked the local cops after him, and the deputies pulled their weapons on him, and the cops retreated and sent in the SWAT, and eventually this guy was arrested and taken down, and all his basically the entire department was taken down.
Yep.
So there was corruption, but they sent in people who weren't corrupt.
Yep.
Stop him. And in many countries, there's nobody who's not corrupt. There's either they may not be corrupt, but they're too afraid to do anything. Even a country like South Korea. South Korea has only recently moved away from government-sanctioned assassinations. South Korea has only recently moved away from businesses having to pay off all the high-ranking government officials just to exist, and
Yes.
and sex trafficking of minors and all of that. So we supported a horrible dictator, and he was assassinated by his own staff. And they've they had a female president who was removed for corruption. They had the recent right wing, the Korean Trump, and he was removed because he tried to declare martial law.
Yeah. Well, there is a provision in the Korean constitution that gave him that authority.
Of course.
It also gives Congress the authority to reverse it within 60 days, which
Yep.
they did.
Which they
So
did.
neither the actions of the president nor of the parliament are outside of the law.
Exactly.
Though some people in the US would like to have you believe that the president acted in a dictatorial manner. No, when he's following the constitutional procedure and Congress reverts it as prescribed by law.
And also,
I wonder what they're going to say when the incoming guys in South Korea start going to bed with the little rocket man in the north.
well, that's the thing. They're in love with him. And the thing about the president of South Korea declaring martial law, remember when the talk of the impending American Civil War, that's all social media was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
In South Korea, the guy declared martial law, and he did not get unanimity from the armed forces.
Yep.
A massive percentage of the armed forces refused to obey the order to carry out martial law.
Yeah, which was a constitutional order, by the way.
And it was a constitutional order, so they unconstitutionally disobeyed their
Yes.
order. The same thing would happen in this country if Trump declared out of the blue martial law and all. The Democrats are back to saying the reason he's going into these blue cities with the feds is to suspend elections. So if Trump announced that,
I would have all of those assholes spend 2 weeks near the Navy Yard in DC.
sure,
2 weeks.
But
It's
if
that's
Trump
another
did-
thing.
if Trump did announce that all elections were suspended and martial law was declared, 2/3 at least, at minimum, of the armed forces would refuse to obey.
Yeah.
There would be no civil war because
No.
he would not have the armed forces on his side.
Yes, and by the way, it wouldn't be insubordination because in our armed forces, officers are not obliged to follow illegal orders.
Illegal, exactly.
So if Trump were to do that, he better have a legal foundation because nobody would be obliged to follow that.
Well, if Trump were to announce that all elections had been banned permanently and he was now king of the United States,
Ooh.
what would happen is that Kash Patel would send somebody in there to remove him. Well, okay.
To put a straight jacket on him.
J.D. Vance would have Congress invoke the 25th Amendment, and Trump would be removed by the Secret Service, like you said, in a straitjacket, and J.D. Vance would become president, and that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, he'd have to choose a
But
vice.
they have to do it. The problem is that, unfortunately, a lot of Democrats belong in a straitjacket, and they keep yapping and shooting their mouths off.
And you know what?
Eh,
It's not working this time. It's
no.
not working this time.
Did you see the interviews to residents in DC?
Yes, they love
Have you
Trump.
have you noticed the difference between the black population, who happen to be 80% of the population in the city, and the white population?
The white population are crazy, and the black population are not.
Are grateful.
Yep.
You see, as you well know, and we discussed it many times, in 1981 through 83, I was a tour guide in DC, and I've been going there every year since. I kind of love the city in a weird way. Uh, can you love and hate at the same time?
Oh, of course. I've
Yeah.
been in love and in hate with multiple women throughout my
This,
life.
this is my ambivalence.
Yeah.
I love DC. I love the monuments. I love the parks. I love the Smithsonian, even though everything in the Smithsonian is woke now and it needs to be reverted. I used to love Georgetown, not anymore. But the thing is, at least three-fourths of the city have been a battle zone for the past 40 years.
Hmm.
Totally unsafe to walk at night, dilapidated neighborhoods. Those poor people who live there have had to contend with drugs and crime on an hour by hour basis. Then there is the Northwest. The Northwest is where all the government buildings are, all of the embassies, where all the rich bureaucrats live, although many more live in Virginia and Maryland. And those areas used to be the only place where you could just walk around, although uh, lately it had become dicey. Like walking down F Street or even M Street at night was kind of weird. I was with my wife trying to, you know well that we love to walk wherever we go.
Right.
So we go to restaurants and walk 20 blocks, and even around the FBI building, it was like these weird characters and people living in tents and people coming up to you with an attitude, you know, asking for money with an attitude. You don't know if they're asking or trying to mug you, but they were either too drunk or too drugged up to know the difference. Now that Trump is exercised his constitutional right to take over security in the city, as a matter of fact, he could exercise the right to take over, period, and Congress could repeal the home rule because up until 1973, Washington, D.C. was governed by the president and Congress.
Hmm.
And then, you know, the Democrats took advantage of the Watergate crisis to come out with a home rule so that we could have crackheads and drug dealers in City Hall instead of the president and Congress. Whites are protesting. And you see these people protesting the National Guard and the feds, and they're all whites 50 years old and up.
Well, that's why Stephen Smith said they all need to go home and take a nap because they're 90-year-old ex-hippies.
Well, he exaggerated on the 90, but yeah, that's exactly what you see. Now, you also see when journalists actually venture to the southeast, to the southwest, and they start actually talking to people. You see all of these neighborhoods where the black residents are very happy with the new state of affairs because the streets are not battlegrounds anymore.
Well, I saw a guy saying he hopes it lasts, and it's like, well, it'll last as long as there's a Republican in the White House. So,
Yes,
maybe you guys should start changing your voting patterns because,
I think they might.
yeah, and I hope for their sake they do because, you know, um, is the country just going to forever just say, DC and Detroit, it's been in the hands of Democrats for decades. End of story. I mean, are the voters ever going to change? I mean, I don't know.
They better. If, if what I'm saying is correct, and I think that's the bet. Trump was bragging the other day that he was going to redo all the grass on the squares of Washington, that they were going to look like an NFL stadium. No, better, they're going to look like a Trump golf club. And then and then he went on describing how beautiful the grass is going to be in all the parks and recreation areas and plazas. If he does that, if he beautifies the city as he intends to do in time for the World Cup, and he maintains strict control of police in DC to ensure that crime is not a good idea in the city, I think that by next year you're going to have at least two-thirds of Washington D.C. voting for him.
Well, this is the thing. Look what people got for voting for Democrats. They had illegal aliens take away their libraries. They had illegal aliens take away their swimming pools, their gyms. I mean, that's what they got. They were basically told that, look, you're going to vote for us anyway. So what's the point in us, doing anything in order to benefit you? Who are you going to vote for? The Republicans? Don't make me laugh. And I don't know. If Trump can break off a big chunk of the black women, then that's going to be a real what do you call it?
A real changer.
A real changer.
That may break the stalemate
Yep.
that we've had for a while, and it might happen. I think that people, regardless of color, social status, or any of the new divisions that the socialists want to impose on us, when the class struggle failed, they, they love living better. They love cleaner streets. They love lack of crime. They love not having to worry every time they got to make a deposit or buy groceries. And if they get a good sample of that, there's no going back.
Yep.
They were convinced that it couldn't be different.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
these areas of DC were already a piece of shit in 1982, don't get me wrong. You took your life in your hands if you ventured into the southeast or southwest after dark.
Well, remember there was some intern who was shot to death, and there were all these conspiracy theories about how he was about to spill the beans on Hillary, and so she had him.
Seth Rich.
Yeah, I mean he was out he was walking home from a bar at like what 3:30, 4 in the morning.
Yeah, and that was in the Northwest.
Yeah, I remember people saying, we don't get this type of crime here, and it's like, well, did you think that that was going to last forever?
No, and then, well, there was another intern who was knifed. There is a park, the snakes in the Northwest around Anacostia, and she was found there stabbed to death, and there were already homeless people living there. Uh, even even in the Northwest, there are areas now that are beginning to show. Like I said, around uh, when I talk about F Street and say Ninth or 10th,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm talking about 10 blocks from the White House, and it's like it's already a battle zone. So no, it's in a terrible state of this social disrepair. And Trump has got a great idea, and God forbid it actually works, because then the people in the poorer neighborhoods of Chicago or New York are going to demand that he do it there too.
Well, he's already announcing, uh, uh, that he is going to do the same thing in all these other cities. So that's going to make
But
the
we need a successful experiment first.
Yep.
Anyway, folks, you've been watching for 2 hours. So this is the moment where I am going to ask you um, to fork out some moolah. What the hell? Um, we don't have any other form of support but our viewers. Uh, we don't get money from Soros. We don't get money from USAID. We're not like these Democrats cashing in from every corner. And certainly Qatar is not paying us a dime, so we can tell you what a bunch of assholes they are. We don't have advertising. And in our SQV, we don't collect data from our users. So all we have to run on is whatever you can spare. There are three ways you can do that. You can come to Odyssey, the chat link that we included in the description in X and in many of our YouTube descriptions. You can come over here and use support, uh, super chat, or tips and help us go. The other ways are, let me see if I can put a screen over here. Oh, yes. Quadverum.com/support us. Very simple, very easy. You can make a monthly contribution or a one-time donation with any credit card, PayPal, whatever the hell you want to use. And the other easy way is on X. Just subscribe to the Brother Lie. Oh my God, you're going to be giving us like one latte every 2 months. But if enough people do it, that will be enough. So please subscribe to X at the Brother Lie. Drop a buck at quadverum.com/support us, or come to Odyssey and join as a member of the channel. Put a buck in support or whatever else rocks your boat. If enough people do it, we're going to be fine, and I won't have to pester you every other show with this. And that is enough because this isn't NPR, and we're not going to torture you with money appeals for the next 2 hours, so we can have 5 more minutes of show and go home. So please drop us a buck. That's it. That was the end of my shameless appeal, and I'm trying to find out. I see something on the screen here, and I don't know what the crap it is. Do you see something on the screen right under you?
Johnny Wozniak reposted the screen.
What the hell? Like that, but it's not there. Okay. Jesus, I don't know how the hell that got in there, but that's fine. I'll I'll try to figure out what happened later. So, Thomas, moving
Uh-huh.
on with the affairs of this world and context, all important context. How long do you think before in Venezuela they can celebrate the demise of Nicolas Maduro?
It's hard to say. My brother used to say, my brother is to put it mildly, he's not a fan of Islam, and he believes that all countries that have a large number of Muslims in it have a what he calls a reversion clause, and that at some point, regardless of how advanced a country is, at some point the people will decide they need to go back to the Bronze Age. And the thing about Latin Americans is that, okay, Chile is the best example that they went from being a shithole to being a success story to back to being a shithole.
Yep.
And
I think, by the way, there are no Muslim countries in South America, but the reversion clause applies just
yeah,
the same.
and Venezuelans are all about they're all about getting free shit from the government and bitching about Uncle Sam. In the house that I used to live in, it was my great aunt's house, and she had her second to last caretaker was a woman who spoke no English, and her husband used to come over, and he insisted on having political discussions with me in Spanish, and it was all about how horrible the United States was.
Yeah,
He was here in the United States.
no better than Norwegians.
Exactly. And he presented himself as the Lord of all earnestness and rationality. And I didn't, okay, you don't want to pick a political fight with my brother, because today what he'll do is he'll open his mouth and he'll exude a 10-foot flame and exterminate you right there on the spot.
By the way, if people don't know your brother, eh, I do. I wouldn't like to pick a fight with him anyway on
No.
any subject.
And he's getting more and more he's not angry. He believes in live and let live, but if you assault him in any way,
Yeah, if you poke the bear, you're gonna get the bear.
exactly. And I've never been like that, and I would just put up with this little twerp. He always wore a cowboy hat. He drove a pickup truck, and he was an idiot. He was here in the United States benefiting from, they were from some utter crap hole like Ecuador or something. And
A country with no name.
exactly. The and a country, it's like, are you going to move back to Ecuador? No, of course not. I'm going to stay here. I'm an American citizen now. Why don't you speak English? Well, because I don't have to. And it was really irritating. But if they did go back to Ecuador, they would revert to, like, there's is it Peru, where there's these Indians who the women all wear like derby hats, like black derby hats.
Peru, Bolivia,
Exactly.
Parts of Ecuador as well.
And they have an annual punch in the face festival where everybody gets together and they all get drunk, and if you have a beef with somebody, you're allowed to like get into this fist fight and then get out all your stresses. And
Yes. They do that once a year. Unfortunately, they don't take baths that often.
they don't what?
Take baths
No,
that often.
I do know that.
Yeah, I'd rather take their punches than their aroma.
Well, I saw this series, and it was by this American couple who were traveling the world studying Stone Age people to show us how wonderful they were. And they were in Ecuador talking to a brujo, and the brujo wanted to the witch doctor wanted to tell them their festival, and he had a little cage with a guinea pig in it. You know, it was about this long. And he pulled it out and he just broke it open, and this fucking thing screamed its last little breath of life.
Which,
And I've never been able to forget that. And I just thought, what kind of culture celebrates this? Like you have this guy come over and take a live guinea pig and tear it open while it's still alive, so it's screaming its little heart out. And these people filming this blonde American woman and her beta male husband, they're not horrified. They're because he's a Stone Age fucker. You know, he's a stinking Ecuadorian. And who are they to judge? It's like, well, I can judge. That's a horrible culture. You don't do that to little animals.
The moment that the Rusonian crap filtered into the American educational system, we got fucked.
Yeah.
And we produced this incredible number, and the only saving grace is they're not a majority yet. But all of these educating, uh, 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 what was the name, Emil or some shit like that, all of this shit about the nobility of the savage.
Yeah. The last
the glorification of lack of culture and civilization. Go fuck yourself. There's nothing noble in savagery.
Well, there's a book about the Aztecs written by the Australian anthropologist Inga Clendenning. She has a segment about what the let's see, it's a North American northeastern tribe. I think the men shave their heads and they have like this little tuft of hair that they put feathers in. Mohicans, I think. I can't remember which tribe was in the northeast. But anyway, they captured a guy from a different tribe, and to honor him, they applied the most gut-churning tortures you've ever read about in your life. It's like, hammering burning stakes into his ears, and the nobility of this, we're honoring him.
There's no nobility. The Rousseau's book is L'Éducation des Mille, but I just checked and it's Emile or on education in English. Folks, if you want to read that shit, you're going to understand why Democrats take 90% of their bullshit. Because it comes from there. Sarah says the cost of courage in Aztec society. That's the one you were talking about. The Aztecs. Number one, my family's been in America about 80 years longer than the duration of the Aztec Empire. So fuck original peoples. Number one. Number two, what is there worthy of emulation or praise in the Aztec society?
I think the world's better off without them.
I think in particular the indigenous peoples of Mexico were better off without the
Well, that's why 250 Spaniards were able to conquer them, because they recruited from all the Aztecs' neighbors.
Anybody and their mothers were just, get us out of these assholes.
Yeah.
They kill our men, fuck our women, and take the heart out of our children.
Exactly. They had a day where they massacred, they sacrificed children. They had a children's sacrifice day.
Yes, thousands.
Yeah.
By the way, quite an efficient murdering machine, because to sacrifice thousands of children in one day while pulling their heart out and having their blood run like rivers down the pyramids, it takes Nazi efficiency.
Hmm?
It's not improvised.
No,
So,
no, and they had the head witch doctor that presided over this wore the skin of someone who'd been his whole skin had been flayed off in one piece so that the witch doctor could put it on like a suit.
yeah,
There isn't any atrocity that the Aztecs didn't commit. So the world's better off without them. Like they would never have invented an airplane unless it was an airplane that would sacrifice children. It would run on fuel made of sacrificed children. So
and until you get the granddaughter of a Latvian with a rather meretricious approach to politics, climb into several beds until she makes it to the presidential seat in Mexico, vindicating the indigenous peoples with which she had no relationship whatsoever, except an inclination to emulate their barbarism.
oh, that's the thing. The Mexican cartels have not been producing their atrocity videos for very long. 20 years maybe at most.
Yeah.
And they've evolved over the point that they've returned to their roots. They've returned to their roots where they cut a living man's chest open, pull out his heart, and they take it a step beyond the Aztecs in that they take bites out of the still beating heart. So I mean, you're supposed to feel sorry for them that the Spanish and several tens of thousands of neighbors wiped them out. I don't feel bad for them.
No. No. And you know, the Spanish and several thousand and several million of their neighbors built what came after. There's nothing left by the Aztecs there.
No. And the one tribe in the Americas, south of North America, that was not warlike were the Toltecs. And the Toltecs, like the Anasazi, were exterminated by the warlike neighbors.
By the Aztecs.
Pardon me?
By the Aztecs among
By the Aztecs, exactly. So the most violent cultures in human history were the American Plains Indians, because the Aztecs had buildings. The Plains Indians didn't have even that. They just had tents.
Yes.
And their answer to everything was violent death, killing. And we did not commit genocide on them. Upwards of 90% of them died of the diseases that we brought to this country.
Shit happens. Ask
Exactly.
COVID.
Exactly. And exactly like the Spaniards in the South, these people in the North had been fighting each other for centuries, and they joined up with the white man in order to wipe out their traditional enemies.
Yeah, often with different white men, some with the Spaniards, some with the English, some with the French, and became players in the colonizing game.
Yep. So this is human history. Everybody has a history of slavery. Everybody has a history of colonization. There are no, quote, good, unquote, cultures in the sense of, you could argue that the United States is a good culture because it's tried to improve itself. It's tried to...
The good culture is the one that wins.
And there's that too.
You know,
Um,
there's a reason. There's a reason that Rome became a great empire and Carthage didn't.
mhm,
The most evolved civilization comes out the winner.
mhm. And
Period.
there are people who try. Okay, the director Francis Ford Coppola put out a horrible flop of a movie called Megalopolis, in which he tried to equate the United States with the Roman Empire. And there's people saying that, like the Roman Empire, the United States will collapse out of our own something that has nothing
Yeah,
to do with the Roman Empire.
after 1400 years, when we're tired of fucking ourselves over. The
Yeah, I
Roman
mean,
Empire, by the way, I do believe that the movie was a piece of shit. But there is something that can be said, not about America being like the Roman Empire, but America being the continuation of the Roman Empire.
yeah,
This is something that can be discussed one day. Rome did not die. I know if you read The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, Gibson's bullshit and all that jazz. Eh, of course, he ignores when Rome fell in the 6th century. eh, he completely ignores that the Roman Empire had transferred its seat to Constantinople, and it lasted there until 1453.
mhm,
So, no, it didn't collapse in the 5th century or 6th century. It continued all the way to 1453. And after his disappearance, people craved for the Roman Empire,
mhm.
for the peace and the quality of life under it. And
Yeah. I
they
mean,
strove to rebuild it.
the Romans brought running water. They brought aqueducts. They brought um, uh,
Indoor toilets.
indoor toilets. They brought fast food. They brought baths, public baths,
Yes.
and
That's why the Democrats don't like the Roman Empire, because they don't like taking baths.
well, okay. I saw a really good video about women who dye their hair primary colors, and it was basically a video essay on um, leftist women and their hair. They dye their hair primary colors, and a lot of them, they cut their bangs all the way up to their hairline. And there's also ones that have the asymmetrical haircut that's dyed in different colors.
Looks like a
And
fucking anime thing.
well, what's fascinating is that they're all marching in lockstep. They're much more conformist. If you look at
Yeah.
Trump supporters, you have people roping antelope in Wyoming who support Trump, and you have young urban black men who support Trump in
And welders in Louisiana.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you don't have that level of nonconformity in especially the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. You must be conformist in your appearance. You must be conformist in your language, in your thoughts. And they regularly have these gatherings where they get together and they all chant it simultaneously. One person on stage with a microphone tells them what to chant, and they all chant it back. And it's textbook cult behavior, which
Yes.
they then project onto Trump supporters.
And you see it in their protests.
Yeah, yeah.
With the beating of the drum and
Yes.
and the uh, I'm trying to find because there is a word for this. But when the crowd chants the phrases sent from the podium to them in a kind of counterpoint, um, it's very called behavior. I mean, it's something that people have used in bad sci-fi movies
Mhm.
to show these gestaltic invaders or some shit like that.
Well, the movie 1984, there have been two versions. One was made in the 50s and one was made somewhere around the 80s. It was Richard Burton's last movie. And what we see in that movie is what we see in every leftist protest held in the United States today. The 2-minute hate. Um, you know that there are groups you can join if you're a woman, and you all go out in the forest and you scream together. You scream, yeah, yeah. The leader will first give you a speech and response, and then you all scream together, and that makes you feel wonderful. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, didn't you see, particularly French women love to do this shit of take off their shirts, show their teeth. In most cases, I wish they didn't. But that's my opinion on the aesthetics of French teeth. And then scream culturally, primal screams.
Mhm.
That's their protest. They need a psychiatrist.
Well, see, this is all. These people are all protesting for each other. They're taking part in a ritual for each other.
Yes,
It has nothing to do with helping the people of Gaza or standing up to Trump or anything like that. It's performance for each other, and this has been around for a while. I was going through my video library and I was finding videos from 2017. There were all these. It was April 15th, 2017 in Berkeley. It was an anti-Trump tax day protest. And everything they were saying in those videos is what they're saying today. They were protesting against ICE. They were saying we say no to a dictator and a king, and et cetera, et cetera. And like that was what, 8 years ago, and nothing's changed.
yep.
Except they're now 8 years older. And also there are far fewer of them out there
They,
now.
they were essentially saying the same shit with the Occupy New York movement in what was in 2000
2011, yeah.
in 2011.
Occupy, yeah.
They were doing the very same fucking shit in New York in the 80s
Yep.
and in the 70s. This is so frankly old-fashioned at this point.
It is. It's old fashioned.
They're not original. It's old-fashioned. I mean, all the avant-garde are now the rear guard.
Yeah.
Um, somebody says here is a left-hand circle jerk. That's exactly what it is, and you're correct, absolutely correct, Thomas. It it is a uh, performative art for the consumption of the faithful.
Mhm.
They're not going to move you. They're not going to move anybody. If anything, they're going to create more animosity from anybody who has to hear their streams.
Well, they refuse. If you go to one of these protests with a microphone to speak to somebody, some guy wearing a green vest will come up and tell that person to not speak to you. So they are against any form of debate or interaction.
Absolutely.
And okay, in 1968, I think it was the night of the Democratic National
Convention.
the convention in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
There was a big riot.
Yep.
Bill, the guy who started the conservative magazine, Bill.
Junior.
Oh, pardon me?
Buckley.
Bill Buckley was speaking with the novelist Gore Vidal, and Gore Vidal was not at all interested in a debate. He just kept calling Buckley a crypto Nazi. And on the air, on the live air, finally Buckley said, "If you call me that one more time,
I'll belt you.
I'm going to smash you in the face. I'm going to paste you." And
Yeah.
and Gore Vidal,
By the way, irony of irony, because Gore Vidal is was a fucking fascist.
well, Gore Vidal was an alcoholic, self-loathing gay man
Yeah.
who was enraged that he was never held up as this as a modern Mark Twain.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read any of Gore Vidal's fiction, he is no Mark Twain,
No.
which is why he wasn't held up as a Mark Twain.
No, he wouldn't qualify as a scribe for a cartoon.
Yeah, and when you are enraged at the world and you hate yourself, then that's the end of the story right there.
No, and it's a generation of useless shit. How about contemporary of Gore Vidal still going around? This son of a bitch is gonna bullshit until he turns 150. Noam Chomsky.
Does he still have like the gigantic white beard and the long hair?
Well, I don't know because now I see quotations,
Oh,
but now 2 years ago he still had this thing. I mean, he looked like a character out of Harry Potter.
exactly.
But how can anybody with such little intelligence and poor dominion of the language become a guru to these idiots? How is it even possible? And he's still out there. And of course, he hates Trump.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Like, I give a shit. I've been hating the sucker since the 70s.
Noam Chomsky and Seymour Hersh.
Oh, God.
He's 88 years old.
Yeah.
Seymour Hersh is still out there telling us. See, it's really funny. Seymour Hersh wrote this piece that Obama was going to bomb Syria because they crossed the red line and that he had to be talked out of it.
Yeah.
Seymour Hersh did not predict the bombing of the Iranian nuclear program.
No.
So Seymour Hersh,
but he did say that it was the CIA that destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline.
right? Didn't they just arrest some Ukrainian nutcase?
Yes.
No.
But Seymour Hersh pontificated that it was the CIA, and always quoting sources that told him. All of the shit that the Atlantic and other such propaganda outfits have published from from Hersh. It's not only stupid; it's patently false.
Okay, the Nord Stream was Nord Stream pipeline. Hold on. Nord Stream pipeline. Let's see. 22.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means Biden's CIA blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Why in the hell would Biden want to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline?
Ask Hersh. Hirsch belongs with people like Krugman or Jeffrey Sachs
Yep.
in a peculiar level of hell for bullshitters.
Yep.
And they, by the way, some of them have destroyed countries. Jeffrey Sachs destroyed Bolivia, acting as an economic advisor to the government of Bolivia. Ah, Bolivia was so fucking destroyed that it ended up with the most abject socialist tyranny for 25 years. They're just now coming out of it. By the way, this is the first.
Was
The-
Bolivia the one run by that fucking Indian? That Indian? who was
yes,
completely
Evo
illiterate?
Morales.
Yeah, and he was totally illiterate. He couldn't
Yeah.
read or write
No,
or sign
but
his own goddamn
But he
name.
could get 15-year-olds pregnant.
Yeah.
That he could do. Well, that asshole is going to jail. His movement, Movimiento al Socialismo, movement towards socialism, managed in the last election to get 4% of the vote.
It only took him 20 years.
It's a first off, because I don't know of any socialist party that immolated itself in this fashion anywhere in South America.
No. No, and okay, what does Bolivia have? How in God's name could Bolivia become successful? The only way I see is like outrageous amounts of foreign investment.
Well, yes, because as usual, when you hear these fucking morons, we have natural resources. Natural resources are stones, asshole. You
Yeah.
need tons of foreign investment to turn that into a commodity you can actually sell. Eh, Obviously, they're not going to leave out of the beauty of their women.
No.
Because, God, if there is an ugly people on earth, that's Bolivians. There are a few exceptions in a place called Santa Cruz in the valleys, which was more mixed with Spanish blood and even some German blood. But the Bolivians up in the mountains, God, they're ugly. They have noses the size of canoes. You can put two people in them and sail down the Potomac on a Bolivian nose.
Okay, Bolivia's got mineral and
Tin,
oil.
in particular, tin.
Yep. And
Oil they think they might have,
right.
because nobody is made a hole yet.
Right. And that is where you're going to need the foreign investment.
Yeah,
You're going
and
to need
tin, it doesn't grow like a plant.
No.
You need mining. You need there are other minerals, and there are some mines in there, but these are mines that were built in Spanish colonial times. I mean, this is all that shit. And no, there's nothing the Bolivians they import half of the food they consume. They could produce food. It is within their capacity in the lower lands of Santa Cruz. But have you ever seen a socialist eager to work?
No, and see, this is the thing that again, we're told over and over and over and over again, socialism has never been tried correctly.
No.
And it's like, well, why is it that not a single culture on the face of the earth is able to make socialism work?
For the same reason that you cannot become airborne flapping your arms.
Yeah.
Just that hasn't happened either. I wonder if it is a coincidence. Socialism is like the cow that wanted to jump over the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice if we could, But we can. It is the marketing of hot air and lofty aspirations with nothing.
Well, the closest we come to pure socialism is in Norway, which is sitting on one of the world's largest oil deposits, which allows them to pay for everything. And those are the most unhappy people I've ever
I
met
was
in my
going to
life.
say, and still be miserable.
Utterly miserable.
Not only, yeah, miserable doesn't begin. A friend was telling me last week, driving in Norway is going through hell. Everybody's driving at the speed limit,
Hmm?
and that's it. So you spend 4 hours smelling. I was going to say smelling the exhaust, but these are all electric cars now. Because everybody drives an electric car because no other is allowed. The country that is sitting on a lake of oil. The views from the fjords that were so fucking wonderful, now it's all windmills. But the thing is that everybody has to drive. So you have caravans on the roads
Hmm?
of people going at the same speed. Nobody passes anybody. Every, how the fuck can you live like that? This, no wonder they get home, get drunk, and start beating people.
Well, of all the Norwegian movies I've seen, these are all on Netflix. So Netflix has been a godsend for countries that have a small cinematic presence.
Yes.
I saw a movie about a husband and wife who took a vacation to the family cabin, and each had planned to murder the other without knowing that.
I saw it. Yes.
Yep, there was that. There was another one about a tidal wave that hit this town when half of a fjord wall fell into the fjord.
Mm.
There was another one about a secret mission. The world's population had been nearly wiped out by an unknown plague, and they'd found the cure, which it was in a sample, and the soldiers were supposed to get it from point A to point B by ice skating across a frozen lake and fighting their way. And when they got to where they were going, they were told that the cure was fake. There is no cure. That they just said this so that people wouldn't lose their marbles. So the soldiers jumped off a cliff. End of the movie. There was another one I saw about. I guess I can say almost every Norwegian movie except the one about the husband and wife trying to murder each other. All the colors of the movie are dark. The stories are dark. Everybody dies. There's
the cities are gray.
Yep. The cities are gray. I did see one about a Norwegian alcoholic detective who is trying to track down a man. The movie's called Snowman, and this guy decapitates his victims and then puts the head on top of a snowman. So it's a snowman made of 3 balls, and the top ball is a human head. Yeah.
But by the way, Nish here on the chat says, "Why do Norwegians crawl around on the floor in the supermarket? They're looking for the lower prices." This is like the Pollock jokes. Vikings, there are no Vikings in Norway. I'm sorry. The Norse are dead. The Vic is gone, and it's been replaced by descendants who, as Nish says, grovel on the floor of the supermarket looking for the lower price. and would never dare go 1 mile over the limit.
No,
Part
because
of which,
when you go,
is all the cameras. I mean, the police state in Norway is oppressive.
oh yeah, no, I mean, in the late 70s, I was told don't ever get picked up by the Norwegian police because, like, they've mastered the art of hitting you in ways that don't leave bruises.
Yes.
So here they are, talking about their moral superiority.
Oh, the human rights and all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's
If you're a good Norwegian, you have to marry a Muslim woman who wears a burqa.
well, the Oslo police chief explained to Oslo's women that it was their fault they were getting raped because they weren't wearing hijabs.
Yeah, no,
So-
you have to wear a scuba diving outfit.
Yeah,
If you were all covered in neoprene that
Yeah.
takes a half an hour to take off, nobody would be able to rape you.
yeah. No, and okay, that Nazi fake Nazi weirdo who carried out the atrocity in 2011.
Oh yes, 78 teenagers died. But
There's
the only mass murders happen in the U.S.
Well, there's a horrible black humor aspect of it because those kids, that was a Labor Party summer camp,
Yes.
and those kids were being trained on how to go to Israel and disrupt checkpoints. And so when this guy appeared on the island with his gun and his uniform, they thought he was part of the role playing. So they went up to him and said, "Leave that Palestinian alone," and he shot him. I mean,
There is a certain black humor to it, indeed.
yeah,
But you see, God works in mysterious ways. When He says, "Oh shit, I made a mistake. These genes are defective." Hmm. Go on to this.
the Norwegian anti-terrorism unit doesn't have a helicopter because Norway doesn't want its citizens to think that that unit has been militarized. So they had to drive to the island, which was a 2-hour drive. At the island, German tourists got tired of hearing the kids screaming and tried to get in their own boats and row across to rescue him, and they were prevented at gunpoint by Norwegian police.
Yeah.
Why would the Norwegian police prevent somebody from... The Norwegian police weren't going to get in a boat and try and save them.
Maybe it's a union thing. Maybe it's a union thing. We cannot accept non-union workers.
They were interviewing this German, and he said, "I've been coming to this area for 30 years, and I'm never coming back. This is the worst thing I've ever experienced."
People who want a vacation in Norway don't know where the hell they're getting into.
No.
There are other places in Scandinavia that are worth visiting. Norway? You gotta be shitting me.
Well, Norwegians were the most combative people I've ever met, the most miserable people I've ever met, and the most arrogant people I've ever met. And I was in the former Yugoslavia. I was interviewed by the Yugoslavian secret police, and I would take the former Yugoslavia over Norway any day of the week.
Any day. Oh yeah.
Because at least the Yugoslavians would give you good food. Those Yugoslavian secret police officers, they would have at least given me like the Yugoslavian version of borscht and potatoes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was interviewed by the secret police in Brazil, but the sons of bitches didn't give me anything to eat.
Yeah, no, I was given a few hours to leave the country, and I made it by the skin of my teeth. into Austria. But when we bombed Belgrade in 1999, I watched video of them bombing the building where I was interrogated, and that was really weird.
No, that must have been oddly pleasant.
Well, it's so bizarre. Like all these failed countries, they all have. I don't know if you saw the North Korean honor guards marching the coffins of the dead North Korean soldiers, but they all had the peaked hat, but the peak, instead of being on top, was on the back. So
Yeah.
it had this giant circle, and that's how the Yugoslavians had their hats, but they were a summer hat that was white. So they look like those engravings of like Catholic saints.
No,
So-
the Orthodox, the icons.
Exactly. And so I was so terrified. I was only 17 years old, and I was freaking out because they all look like Catholic or Orthodox saints carrying AK-47s, and you know, just that weirdo communist look of the peaked hat. It's like a police hat, except the top part is on the back of the head,
Yeah.
and it's huge. It's gigantic. It's
The
like
Russian-
twice the size.
the Soviets had something like that too.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all based. Everything communist comes from the Soviet Union, and
Yeah.
it's all ugly, and it's all crappy and
Useless and
dingy.
cruel.
Well, it's just miserable.
Happy, useless, and cruel. Oh, but anyway, so we're back to Russia. I believe, I truly believe that whether intended to or not, Trump set a trap for Putin, and Putin walked into it
Yeah.
uh, without even looking around. He must, he must forget everything he said in the past 3.5 years and sit to negotiate with Zelensky, which is going to make him look like a weak, useless asshole to everybody in Russia. I mean, you cannot, for 3.5 years, even more, tell everybody in Russia, in every interview, in every appearance, in every announcement, in every discourse, that the object of the war is the denazification of Ukraine, which you and I know it's bullshit anyway, and that Zelensky must go. And I'm not going to have any conversation. If they want to have any kind of discussion, let them have elections and bring me a new one, as if elections in Russia were any good. And now he's going to sit with Zelensky to talk ceasefire. And he's going to have to go back to Moscow hat in hand because Zelensky is going to say no, 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 and hell no.
Yeah. No. And what happens if and when the Ukrainians, who've been launching a hell of a lot of feelers into the Crimea, what happens if they launch a giant offensive and take back Crimea in a matter of days, and the Russians can't do anything to stop them? Then what is
They don't have the forces to stop them.
exactly? You were talking about, I think it was either you or a video, but all the foreigners captured by the Ukrainians fighting for the Russian side, it's like Somalis, Pakistanis,
Oh, yeah.
Indians.
We discussed this on the phone.
Yeah.
There are, to be sure, there are foreigners in the Ukrainian army as well.
They're all in
Yeah.
one unit.
But they're all in one unit, and they're mostly from the US, the
Mhm.
UK, other countries in Europe. The Russians have soldiers from every shithole on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember Blazing Saddles, the army
Hmm.
of the bad people?
Hmm.
I'll bet you 10 to 1 that if we start looking intently, we're gonna find some Ku Klux Klanners in the Russian army. Because every bad asshole in the world is there. I, I can't I can't believe we're not having more fun with this, to tell you the truth. Yes.
Well, they were trying to get 50 Laotian engineers to help them in demining, and they weren't able to get that. Um, and that reminded me of the Thai Laos War,
Yes.
which sort of came and went without anybody even commenting on it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so bizarre. Like
It,
these
it, it wasn't really a war. It was a flare up.
a flare up,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a hemorrhoidal flare up.
Like a hemorrhoidal flare up, and uh, Trump went down there with a little preparation H, and that was it. It wasn't really a war. Same thing with India, Pakistan. It wasn't really a war,
Yeah,
and they've had one of these every 10 years, like clockwork.
yeah.
Uh, they get upset. They take down a couple of planes or throw a few missiles, and then go home. But neither India bombed Islamabad nor Pakistan tried to do anything with Mumbai or Delhi.
Mhm.
Why? Because it's performative
And they
art.
both got on the phone to Trump and said, "Can you get here as fast as you can to
Yeah.
save us from ourselves?"
Yes, come here and give us a reason to break it up. The same thing that Morocco and Spain did with Bush over uh, Perejil, Parsley Island.
Mm.
Parsley Island. It's smaller than a soccer field.
Mm.
It's a barren rock. When people go to the island, they have to bring their water with them because there isn't even water. It's a barren rock, the size of a football field, in the middle of fucking nowhere, and they were going to war over that.
Mm.
So suddenly, uh, all the prime minister of Spain and the king of Morocco were calling Washington, please send an envoy and stop us from doing this stupidity, because none of them could back down.
Yeah.
And they needed some kind of arrangement. The world is such a funny place sometimes.
Well, think about it. You're in charge of a country. You're sitting on the top of the world. You got your limousines. You got your good food. But if you back down from fighting over a barren rock, maybe the people will come into your palace and carry you out by your scrotum.
Bingo. And that is the problem that Putin is facing now.
Yep.
Not only if Putin gives in, if Putin goes to negotiate and comes back empty handed, he's toast.
Yeah.
If he comes back with an agreement that doesn't obtain everything that he said was indispensable to end the war, he's toast. I'm beginning to believe that he's a walking dead now.
Now, let me see if I can find this guy.
Much like Maduro. Maduro is classic morto chi parla.
Got all these poor idiots, these poor idiot Americans who went to Russia to
Oh,
live in a country with
with
you know
family values. Family values. Oh,
yeah.
good riddance, by the way. Good riddance. We should let anybody who wants to follow them follow them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can have all the leftists go to Ireland and all the crazy lunatic. What is the word? Sovereignist go to Russia.
Mm.
And that way we free ourselves from a bunch of assholes. And let me see, the ones in Ireland are probably going to be bored to death. And the ones in Russia are probably going to be dying in Ukraine. Did you see what they do with some of them? Well, they do
Yeah.
it to their own people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to go to the front, and then their commander takes their salary,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to get the family to send them more money because if not, they're dead.
Yeah.
And eventually, they're dead anyway. They
There
have
was
to buy
one.
their weapons. They have to
Yeah.
buy their uniform. They have to buy their weapons. They have to pay the commanders
The guy
for food.
who was told he was going to be a welder if he signed up for the Russian army, and they immediately sent him to the front. He had no training. He spoke no Russian. He was issued no uniform, no weapons, and his paycheck was being confiscated. So he like wrote to his wife saying, I have to buy a gun, I have to buy uniform. She had no way of they had no money, so she had no way of doing anything, and
Yeah,
she was reduced to just making these videos saying, "I sure hope he's okay," and it's like, okay,
he
um,
was already toast.
yeah,
He was already toast. I'm not going to drop a single tear from the son of a bitch.
I,
Anyway, Thomas, it's
uh-huh.
3 hours. We made it to the 3 hours alive.
Let's do it.
Amazing. So, last last appeal. I'll do that. There are over 1,000 people watching. If we had 50 cents for each one of these, you would never hear ask you for money ever again. But it doesn't happen. So get your finger moving. Click on the thing. There are several ways you can help us continue with this. Uh, Subscribe to at the brother lie on X. That's half a Starbucks latte per month. You buy one coffee for the two of us per month. That will help. If that is not your beef, quadverum.com/support us. You can send any amount on a single payment or as a monthly contribution, and that will keep us working. And of course, you can come over to Odyssey, um, donate, join as a member in the channel, or send a tip on the chat. Any of those will work and would very much appreciate it. I have to tell you, the Democrats, Soros, and the unemployed assholes from USAID would probably hate it. So that's another good reason to do it. And what else do I have? Yes. And the part that is absolutely freaking free, subscribe, like, and click on notifications, regardless of whether you are in Odyssey or YouTube or wherever you happen to be. And with that, oh, yes, tomorrow, Quad Meet at 10:30 p.m., where you can come on camera and we can have a face-to-face discussion. Those in YouTube who desperately wanted to talk to us on the YouTube chat, even though we've been saying for 3 years we don't monitor that chat, you can come on camera and get your answers. No question will be censored, though you may not like the answer. I'm telling you now. Because you see, freedom of speech goes both ways. You can ask me the inconvenient question, and then you have to put up with my answer. And some people don't like that, and I don't give a shit. Tuesday, VIP room. I'm going to do something interesting for the VIP room. I know that some people are still trying to figure out how to renew their membership there. So I'm going to be doing a special VIP room on Tuesday, open to all. so that those who have been unable to renew their memberships can watch it. And in that program, I can tell you how to do it. So hopefully we can get that out of the way. And with that, I think I've said anything I needed to say. Thomas, do you have anything else to say? Any last words?
Fen.
Not F-A-N.
F-E-N. Fen.
F. Fang. Même comme la fang?
Yeah, it's in Norwegian. It does mean it's the F word in Norwegian.
It's the F word in Norwegian, is the end in France, and it is something else, sometimes very fishy in English. And with that, thank you so much, folks, and I'll see you tomorrow, next week, whenever you tune in on one of our programs. Good night, everybody.